Thank you. Welcome everyone to this information clinic today about Culture Moves Europe funding from the Creative Europe programme. Thank you all for coming to attend today. I'm delighted to be joined today with Leona Cully from our Creative Europe Desk Ireland, who is the communications manager, and also by Rita Marcallo, who is from Instant Dissidence, and we'll hear from her about her project that was successfully funded through the Culture Moves Europe fund. So we're going to just kick off with the presentation, hopefully.
First, before we start, could everyone please mute your microphone? I can do it manually, but it's easier if you try and do that now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leona. So Culture Moves Europe. Today we're covering the two actions involved in this programme, and they are for residency hosts and for artists or cultural professionals. And we have calls, deadlines that are upcoming in the next 2 months. So just a little introduction and to look at what we have lined up for today. We have a long enough presentation, but do stay with us and we'll have time at the end for questions. And it'll be great because Rita is going to stay with us as well. So we'll have time to put some more questions to her. If you have questions throughout, do pop them into the chat, and Leona is going to share some website links and some other little details along the way. So I'm going to introduce the Creative Europe Desk and what we do. We'll then go into the Culture Moves Europe call for hosts, for residency hosts. We'll hear from Rita and their project. We'll then move into the Culture Moves Europe's artists, call for artists and cultural professionals, and we'll look at how to apply, etc. So as I said, I'm Aoife Tunney. I'm from the Culture Office in the Creative Europe Desk Ireland. And we are a conglomerate of 3 offices, and we're co-funded by the European Commission to give information and advice as a contact point in Ireland for European funding, specifically for the Creative Europe programme. And we have 3 offices. So there are 2 media offices, one in Dublin and one in Galway, and they look after the media sub-programme, which means audiovisual, TV, and film and video games sectors. And we have the Culture Office, which is hosted by the Arts Council of Ireland, and we look after the funding under the Culture sub-programme. So the Creative Europe Desk Ireland, as I said, is co-funded by the European Commission, and we are really, this is our kind of remit. And obviously today, this information clinic is really part of what we do throughout the year. So as the calls come on stream, we will plan in advance to host information clinics, or we do support artists and organizations by developing their projects throughout the year towards a funding application. We also supply or provide other information on other European funding that might be relevant, working with our other stakeholders in Ireland around other opportunities throughout the year. We support and promote diversity, inclusivity and sustainability in line with European policies and also with the Arts Council's national policy as well. So as I said, we give tailored advice. We host webinars, workshops, networking events. Important part of our work is to encourage those kind of cross-border cooperation and partnerships in the creative and culture sectors. And we work closely with our Arts Council colleagues to ensure that those sectors are incentivized to work internationally, and they're in line and working alongside other relevant funding from the Arts Council as well. So what is Culture Moves Europe? Culture Moves Europe came out of a pilot action that the Creative Europe programme ran in the last programme called Opportunus. And you might have heard of this mobility award, which a lot of artists were successful in their applications from Ireland, and it's a very similar award. So it was the pilot before Culture Moves Europe, and now this has become a permanent action, which is great. We've had it allocated across the whole of the programme 2021 to 2027, with 21 million euro allocated to this programme specifically. So Culture Moves Europe, as we know, is separated into two actions: the individual mobility and the residency hosts. It is for the 40 Creative Europe countries, and we can share a link later on. I can share a link to those, as just specifically what are those 40 Creative Europe countries, and it supports individual mobility and residency projects. The fund itself contributes to travel and subsistence costs. It offers top-ups based on the applicant's situation. And it is really great to see that they've built in a number of other elements, including green mobility, which we'll see later on in the presentation. It also supports applicants with family costs and with costs towards disability needs. The programme is funded by the European Union, but is managed by the Goethe Institute. So you will see later on how to apply through the Goethe Institute. Culture Moves Europe's host call is specifically for residency hosts. And that is for either artists or organisations that are set up as a legal entity in a Creative Europe country. The individual mobility through Culture Moves Europe's call is for artists and cultural professionals in the sectors that are explored below: music, literature, architecture, cultural heritage, design and fashion design, visual arts and performing arts. Sorry, I'm just going to try and move my page. Oh, excuse me. Something's got in the way now. Sorry, just having a bit of a technical issue there. My page is not moving. I might stop for a second. Leona, by any chance, if you have yours at hand?
Okay, yeah, let me do that now.
Sorry, yeah, just completely stopped in the middle of my tracks. So yeah, they were the sectors that are covered underneath the award. I'm going to try and find where I was. Okay. So the purpose of the host call, these are similar across the two different calls, and they're looking at applicants to focus in on certain kind of areas, and it's really a guide to tighten or focus your proposal. And they are areas such as exploring, conducting researching, investigation, or working on a specific theme or a new concept in this new country or throughout the residency project itself, looking at engaging in a collective creative process, seeking to produce a new piece of work or artistic cultural work. Learning, enhancing the participants' competencies and skills through non-formal learning or collaboration with a specialist. So there's a link there. You can look up what constitutes non-formal learning. So it's very particular, but that is definitely supported. To connect, so looking at developing a professional network to strengthen the participants' professional development, or to engage with new audiences. And particular to this one is transform, to looking at contributing to the societal change in line with the new European Bauhaus values and principles. So that would be something to look up if you are interested in those kind of areas, and the principles within the new European Bauhaus. You could build that into your application. More particularly for the artist and culture professional calls, you will select two of the following project objectives. So they are similar objectives, exactly the same, except for the transform element. So they don't include that. But so you look through what do you want to achieve through this residency, and you select what suits your project. And who it is for. So for the residency action, it supports, as we said, legal entities across the 40 creative European countries. It supports them to welcome up. So a residency host can welcome up to 5 international artists and or cultural professionals for the residency project. The participants must be at least 18 years old and a legal resident. And the grant contributes to costs of inviting and hosting international and cultural professionals. So at this point, I'm going to introduce Rita, who was a residency host through the 2022 call, and the title of her project was Performance and Ecological Practice Residency. I might stop sharing if we can do that with Leona. Thank you. Sorry, I know it's technical issues, but Rita, if you're there, can you share your...
Great, yeah. So thank you for asking me to be here. So I'll just jump right into it. So my name is Rita Marcalo. I direct Instant Dissidence, which is a performance company based in Clockchord Eco Village in Tipperary. And we have, as well as producing work, Instant Dissidence also has facilities. So a small dance studio where I'm in at the moment, and a couple of rooms and a separate kitchen, etc. So we had run residencies before on an informal basis. They were unfunded. So when this call came, I thought, well, let's try and run a more kind of structured residency. And so we applied for it. And as Eva said, the title of our residency was Performance and Ecological Practice Residency, given that we're based in an eco village, and the work that Instant Dissidence does has a lot to do with climate action. And so we so when you look at Culture Moves Europe, there's different ways that you can, as a residency host, select the artists. You can nominate the artist, but we actually went for a call, an artist call that went Europe-wide, because I'm interested in making new connections with other artists in Europe. So I wanted new people to work with and to work with me. So then Instant Dissidence set up a separate panel who was not myself, and the panel, of course, we had a set of criteria, and the panel selected the 2 artists. And the 2 artists were, and I think Leona will be able to put their websites on the chat now. One of the artists is Yatun Risba, who is a live artist working on interspecies performance work based in Slovenia. And the other artist is Clara Grosjean, based in Lyon in France. And she works on dance and ecology. So the other thing to say that we also went for is we went for the top-up that Eva just mentioned, the slow travel top-up, which meant that it took Yatun 3 days to get to Ireland and 2 overnight stays, and Clara 2 days and 1 overnight stay. So the residency was structured. So you will see in Culture Moves Europe, you also have to have a mentor, and the mentor can be a person from the organization or a person from the outside the organization. For the purposes of the kind of residency I wanted to do, I was the mentor for the artists. And I proposed the residency that it was twofold. There was an aspect that was self-directed, so really was about the artist's own practice and me just there as a facilitator. But the first week of the residency, and the residency was 3 weeks, the first week was directed, which meant that the artist worked with me as a choreographer, and the image that you're seeing now actually is the image of the work that we created, Slow-Mo Clockchord. So they worked with me under my artistic direction as performers. We created and performed this work in Clockchord, and then we shifted, and I took a step back, and I was much more there to facilitate their practice. So at this stage, maybe if you could stop sharing, I'm going to share an image of one, thank you, of one of the works that the artists created one. So this is an image of the labyrinth. That's Clara Grosjean there, and this is a collaboration that Clara did with one of my neighbors, like Adair, who does a lot of 360 film footage. So this is an image of Clara meditatively walking the Celtic labyrinth in the eco-village, a still of a film, a 360 film that they created together. So that was one of the things that Clara explored while she was here. And I'm going to stop sharing, and then maybe you can go back to the main presentation, Eva. And then the other work by Yatoon, if we can shift to that image of Yatoon's work, was again a collaboration through kind of me introducing the artist to my neighbors. Yatoon met Ben Hutchinson, a local photographer, and there you can see it's a collaboration between the two of them. So what you're seeing there is a disused solar panel in the eco-village, one of kind of our failed eco-energy experiments. And Yatoon and Ben did a performance and a collaboration there. So there were other things as well that I did as a mentor for the artists. I got in touch with various organizations in Ireland, and actually the result of that was that Clara got to run a masterclass at Dance Ireland, and she was offered a residency as well at the Fuck and Crane in Cork. And Yatoon ran a workshop and presented their films at Live Art Ireland. And I suppose the other thing to say as well is that there's a possibility with this fund that the artists can stay in the country 14 days after the residency finishes. And that's actually what Yatoon did. So my residency finished at the end of January. Clara went back. Yatoon got permission to stay another 2 weeks, which meant that they moved on to a residency at Live Art Ireland, and then they traveled back within that 14-day period. So yeah, I think I'll leave it here. There's lots to say, but just to say that it was a brilliant experience. We ended up with this additional collaborations and contacts that I now have with these two artists. They found other artists in Ireland that they're now collaborating with. And I definitely will apply to Culture Moves Europe again. It was a great experience. So shall I just leave it there?
Yeah, we can have questions at the end. I think will be really useful for people who are thinking of applying. Thanks a million, Rita. And just you did say at the beginning that it was an open call process, wasn't it?
Yes, it was an open call, and then I had a panel who selected the two artists. So I didn't know, I didn't select them. So it was a surprise for me.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. And great to hear the outcomes and like the possibility for further collaboration. Okay, we'll come back to questions for Rita. So keep them if you have them yourself. And she can kind of give us some more details if that's what you would like. We'll go ahead with our presentation. So we looked at what the Culture Moves Europe is under the residency, who is it for, and for the individual artists and cultural professionals. This action supports legal entities that are registered. Again, we've heard this in the 40 Creative Europe countries. It is for individual artists or cultural professionals or a group of maximum 5 artists who can take the residency together. And the applicants must have a mobility project, which includes 3 elements. This kind of makes it quite easy. It's a 1 international partner, 1 project, and 1 destination. The participants must be at least 18 years of age and from the Creative Europe countries. So looking at the budget, for the residency hosts, there is a hosting allowance and there is a participant allowance. So the hosting allowance is for €35 per participant per day. And this again is a contribution to expenses looking at implementation of the residency around accommodation, mentor fees, renting equipment, etc. Then the participant allowance is €25 per person per day, and that's again a contribution to food, local transport, etc. The travel distance then is the same across both of the calls, and for under 5,000 kilometers, the fee or the grant is €350 per person for your round trip. The travel distance from over 5,000 kilometers, the grant is 700 per person for the round trip. So for the residency grant, we looked at the daily allowance per person and the overall grant, and this is calculated specifically for each beneficiary. So based on each participant's personal situation, and then the entire residency grant is transferred to the residency host, as Rita was, or Instant Dissidents were, and they are responsible then for distributing the corresponding amounts to each participant. So that is something you will undertake as a residency host. Now, just to say, over the course of the Creative Culture Moves Europe calls, the resident hosts can get or apply for several grants under these actions, working with different projects and participants, but they can only be limited to one application per call period. So that was something myself and Rita were talking about yesterday. So you must wait till the next if you are applying for two different applications, one per call. So the individual grant. So again, they will have a daily allowance, and this again contributes to accommodation, meals, and other expenses during the implementation of the project. And the project duration must justify these activities and the duration itself. The €75 per person per day is the allowance for local transport, accommodation, rental equipment, etc. And again, the same travel budget applies to the individual grant. So for the travel grant for under 600 kilometers, traveling by airplane is only allowed in exceptional cases. So this is looking at the green area as well of this award. So in the exceptional cases, that is people with disabilities, that is people traveling from or to an island with no ferry connections, or relating to force majeure or a grave personal circumstance. So they are the exceptional cases for traveling under 600 kilometers by airplane. So the distance between the participant place of residence and the host location is calculated automatically. So when you are in your application form, you will see that there is a distance locator calculator. So you can click in here and have a look at how it works it out automatically. So as I said, this award has built-in sustainability green top-up elements, which is great to see. And for a green top-up, you will be awarded €350 per person when you choose not to travel by airplane. And this is only applicable for 600 kilometers, above 600 kilometers. So you must click into that and select that when you are applying within the portal. For overseas countries and territories, they're welcome to apply, and they also will have a top-up for €150 per person traveling from those areas. We know that different countries within the European Union have visa issues or will have administration for visa, and there is a top-up to support these expenses or to contribute, and that's €80 per person. And the award as well includes or invites people, artists or practitioners with family to apply, and they will support that by providing €100 per person for children, per person with children who are below the age of 10. There's also a disability support for costs related to artists with disability, and that is €75 per person per day. So just looking at the criteria across both calls, the criteria will be in different ways for the residency and for the artistic and cultural professionals. but they're worth kind of considering before you apply. So they will be looking at things like, for the residency, does the host provide appropriate premises and services to participants, including housing, equipment, and work environment? Do they provide mentorship and a collaborative environment to the participants? As Rita mentioned, she was a director and then a kind of facilitator for the residency. So kind of building that in or making that very clear in your application. Is the residency project relevant to the applicant's work and activities? Does the residency project have long-term impact and benefits? And again, looking at what Rita was talking about, those outcomes, that networking that you're going to be building into the residency as a host, and how that will impact and benefit the artist going forward. And then for the artist applicants, does the artist require to travel for this project? So really being able to back that up, why you need to particularly travel to this country in Europe for this project. Are there sustainable aspects in the mobility or the implementation of the project? And mobility, is the mobility sufficiently well planned? And that will be really across both applications to be a host or as an artist or cultural professional. Is the whole project sufficiently well planned and feasible? So looking at results in general over the course of the awards so far, there's been 1,800 recipients over 2022 to 23, 766 successful applicants, or 42.5% have requested green top-up over those recipients. So that's brilliant because it is really a positive way of encouraging that kind of consideration for sustainable travel and mobility. Looking at the family top-up, again, 315 applicants selected to have the family top-up. So that's really great because we're seeing more artists with children being supported. 37 grantees traveling to or from overseas countries also were recipients. 28 requested visa top-ups and 18 selected applicants received additional funding to cover costs relating to mobility needs and disability. So they're really good results, positive in those kind of new areas. We have had 34 successful projects in full across the artists, cultural professional and residency hosts. There are some examples below, and we're trying to, so if anyone knows of anyone, we're going to do a kind of call out to anyone who has been successful. There are the results coming in, but just more specifically for the projects coming from Ireland would be great to hear. As I mentioned, there was an Opportunist, the pilot, which was in the last program, and 15 Irish artists over the course of those calls were successful, and their projects were working in Spain and remote areas in the Arctic, across Berlin, across Europe in various different ways, and across art forms. We do have, which I can send in the follow-up email, we do have 2 publications that we have produced in the last few years, and they do incorporate those Opportunist projects. So they're really interesting to read. What were the projects? Okay, so just looking at the sectors in terms of result, it does increasingly, we see that visual arts, performing arts and music are the kind of highest success rates, but they are with more of these sectors included. So architecture, design and fashion design, literary translation, and now in this call, literature and publishing are included as well. So they're obviously, we're encouraging all those applications to come from those sectors. Looking at how to apply. So just to say that this information that we're all giving you now, we're sharing, and we'll share the presentation, is really an overview of this funding call, and it is not really in detail. I mean, it's correct information, but what we do encourage you absolutely is to download the call document for each particular call and really go through it and make sure you have the right information, you have the right supporting documentation, etc. So what you will need to do is go into the Gotha. The link is there for the portal on the Gotha website. And it'll bring you to a portal page where you set up an account yourself. You register as a company or an enterprise. You select the Culture Moves Europe funding. Now that is particular to the residency host. You will also, there'll be a drop down for artist, cultural professional, and then you begin your application process there. Really, it is very much more simplified than other awards. I think Rita might agree, and this is on purpose because they really wanted to make this mobility call pretty straightforward.